The following program is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
Good evening, everybody. It's your boy E-Buck in the building. I am the one they call the Nighthawk, and this, of course, is I Am Nighthawk, the pod show where we talk about the things that I think about while many of you are asleep. It seemed like it's been forever since I've done one of these, basically because I've been sick the last couple weeks. Still a little bit under the weather, but at least now I have enough voice and strength to hopefully get through this show. It's a lot I want to talk about. I'm probably not going to take the time to talk about it all because I want us to be up half the night discussing things. But anything that you have any opinion on, you can throw your opinion in by following the various pages that you will find this broadcast on. But in order for me to post your comments, I need you to go to my YouTube page. That is Eric Buckner, Nighthawk Network Detroit on YouTube. And those comments I can actually post onto the page and discuss directly. Otherwise, you will post through your other place, and I will try my best to keep up with some of those, depending on who chimes in, whether it be live or perhaps later on in the rebroadcast. That being said, good people, let's get into it. Let's talk about what's going on in the world, particularly in our world known as the U.S. Now, of course, it's been over a month now, and we are about a month actually, and we are now in the process of figuring out what the new state of the U.S. looks like. Basically, what we have learned is that DT in his second term has taken a very bold new approach to dealing with stuff. And it is by taking said pen and getting the paper out and shelling out many executive orders that have already changed the complexity of how government is ran. Now, of course, as you know, I am not a fan of the current president. I did not approve that message. He did not get my vote. But I will say, in terms of coming out the gate smoking and trying to get a bunch of stuff done as promised, so far so good with that. He said he's going to do a lot. He's already done a lot. You got to give him credit for that much. Now, in terms of what he has done, that's an entirely different conversation. Let's try to have it for a few minutes, shall we? Now, as you know, many of his executive orders have dealt with changing, transmogrifying how things are done and looked at in terms of hiring practices and who is doing what. Because there are two things he is clearly trying to eliminate from the government. That is the mandate that is DEI, in other words, diversity, inclusion, and equity. And definitely he does not want anything involving the alphabet children, as we call them, the LGBTQ, anything along those lines. He definitely seems to want to change as well, particularly when it comes to athletes and sports. In his mind, according to the way he wants the government ran, there are two genders, male, female, period. And in terms of hiring practices, it's supposed to go to the best capable person, regardless of sex, gender, etc. Now, if it was as simple as all of that, it would make sense. But you know it's not as simple as all that, good people. There are those of you who, of course, will defend this and any other actions taken by the president to the bitter end. I understand that, particularly if you put your pen to that paper and chose his name to be the person in charge for the next 4 years. You stuck defending him whether you want to or not, because you did approve that message, okay? And it's crazy how some of the more popular TikToks of late that I've seen are those saying that I voted for him and it was a mistake. Now understand it's different in this day and age of TikTok and social media because now that we have the ability to do these deep fake AIs to where we can make people sound and look just like they said what they said, even if they didn't say it, it's not always easy to differentiate whether or not what we are seeing actually happened or if it's some type of fake scenario. I mean, for example, trust me, no room in my house looks like this background, for example. Beautiful background, mind you. But yeah, nah, I ain't got it like that, okay? And several people that post these things, they don't have it like that. Or they didn't say it like that, or they don't even know it was said like that by them. It is simply that. But when it comes to how this government is being ran right now, it's very helter-skelter, particularly when we are looking into the part of the scenario where he has decided government is extra corrupt. We are going to shut down anything that we do not like, and we are going to start to cut it immediately. Immediately, whether it is approved of, legal or not. Now, because of that, a lot of these things that have been under executive order by him are currently being fought out in the court judicial system. Because even though he is the president of these United States, he does not necessarily have the power to do several of these things that he has already done, okay? He just is not able to do so of his own volition just based upon him signing off on it, okay? Congress got things to say about this and understand it's been a month, and Congress has pretty much spent this time just appointing his people and not really dealing with the meat and crust of these issues that we need them to get into. But keep in mind, when you look at the last couple years of Congress, it ain't like they got a lot done then either. But in terms of what he has done, it's going on so much and it's going so quickly, it's hard to keep up with it all. Even if you're a person like myself that takes ample time to watch the news from day to day. So it's crazy that when these things start to leak out in bits and pieces, several people only know the gist of it and they assume a lot. If there was any more of a time for you to sit down and do your full research when you can, it is now. Because otherwise you will be lost with what is going on. Now, understand that a lot has to do with the fact that several people are going to work and finding one or two things. One, you are no longer hired because your job is no longer necessary, or you are to look at your job and you will have this much time to decide whether you still wants to be here or not. And then if you don't decide the right way, we will determine whether or not you still work here. Thousands upon thousands of government officials are finding themselves in that situation. It's been 30 days, and I'm interested to see if they actually going to post the numbers for unemployment because the government is doing a great job of unemploying people. So it can't be a good thing when those numbers come out. I'm pretty sure you're not going to see no good numbers for that. I'm pretty sure that's not something that they're going to stress that, yeah, we're doing a good job with that there, okay? Because clearly, if you are the main people unemploying folks, that's not a good deal, okay? Now, in the ideal world, they were doing these government actions and letting these people go from various agencies and had places to put them instead of, you could almost argue it would be a good thing if indeed what the thought process is that government is being very wasteful and spending money in the wrong places, but we have the ability now to look at that and put people in places where they are better served. If that is what's being done right now, I'm sure it's not quite the uproar that it is at the moment because it makes sense that way. I mean, let's be honest. The one thing we can say that we have to agree with the current president is that, yeah, there are things in our government that definitely need to be looked into and corrected. Billions upon billions of our taxpayer dollars have been mismanaged and spent incorrectly. That's just the truth. I can't even front on that, okay? We've all felt like that for decades upon decades, that we do not care for how some of our money is being spent, particularly when it comes to foreign aid and things of that nature. So when we find out that some of that money is being spent to provide television for countries across the globe and whatnot, as opposed to what we thought that money was going for, okay, can't be mad at somebody feeling some type of way about that. That I can't necessarily agree with. On the other hand, when we look at the fact that a third of the people that are being let go of their jobs outright is without any type of actual review of their work, without actually sitting down and saying, okay, this is what you've done. This is why we don't deem it necessary. This is why we're letting you go. In a lot of these cases, it's like, okay, this is what it is. Yeah, we need to get rid of that much money from your department. We're going to start with you, period. And no explanation given, no explanation needed. We the government, you work for us, we say so, bye-bye now. That's crazy. That is crazy. And then, of course, with the whole firing of people that were in charge of DEI, with the explanation being given that, yeah, we should not hire people based on those things. We have forgotten why we've done so in the first place. Remember, this is a country where many, many years, we as African Americans and people of color have said, yeah, you owe us some type of reparations. We've said that not because it is necessarily true, and it really is, but because we've seen you give reparations to other groups over the years. When you look at the Indians and what happened in the Chinese concentration camps and things of that nature. But instead of giving us said money, kind of as an olive branch over the years, here came this thing that they called DEI, or previously known as the situation of affirmative action, where we look at it and say, okay, in order for Black people to advance themselves and get to some type of generational wealth, they have to be allotted opportunities to do so by getting the better jobs in the system. So that is part of why we got to that point. Now, suddenly, that's not necessary anymore, particularly when we look at our educational practices and the fact that only 3 out of 10 African Americans even attend college, and only half of them graduate from college. So, if the better jobs require a college education, you see what I'm getting at, people. And the fact that we live in a country where the majority of its citizens are women, but yet women make up for less than 10% of the overall workforce when it comes to the higher paying jobs and CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. That makes sense. And now the one advantage that you did have to try to get up the corporate ladder and help out that situation, you want to take out of the system altogether. And of course, all the major companies want to follow suit, and you as a government doing so that you have the Amazons and Targets and the Walmarts wanting to get rid of getting rid of DEI also. I mean, where does that put us? This is a situation that even if we went back tomorrow and the court said, okay, all this is wrong, you can't do it, the damage has already been done to some degree, just based on what has happened already in these 30 days. So imagine when most of this goes through the court and the courts agree with most of what the president is currently doing. These are things that will take decades to change and reconfigure and do all over again. So we are literally changing how we operate as a country altogether. And of course, some people are out there and they love this. They are enjoying it very thoroughly. It is exactly what they wanted from the president, to change and drain the swamp, as they call it, to change how things are operated in our government. Are some of these changes something that we need to do overall? Yeah. Is this the way to go about it? I don't think so. particularly when it comes to DEI. How could I approve that message when DEI affects my people to that degree? I just cannot do it. And then, of course, there's the way in which the deportations are going forth and whatnot. Find it interesting that even though we know the numbers are down for people trying to cross the border and whatnot, and people are getting sent up out of here, there's not a lot of footage being aired in regards to that. Or maybe that might be not purpose, okay? Now keep in mind there's other things going on that gotta be addressed, like the situations with the various airplane mishaps we've had in the last couple weeks. These things only slightly tie into each other when you consider, okay, if there are less people in air traffic control and FDA and whatnot, that obviously affects things. When we look at the last 30 days and the fact that the egg thing, I told you I was worried about the egg thing. Listen to your Uncle E podcast on Spotify. Check it out. Anyway, the fact that now we look at the price of eggs due to the bird flu and how it's affected the industry, and the fact that eggs cost twice as much as they did just this time last year alone. Average price egg somewhere about $7 a dozen right now. And that's if you're lucky enough to live in a place like Michigan. Lord knows how much they probably are in LA or New York at the moment, where things are already overpriced as it is. Yes, a lot going on. We got to be diligent and pay attention. Now, understand the Democrats, they're coming out and basically because they did not do any of these things, they are, of course, opposed to them. And I get that. But again, the problem that Democrats are having is they are not good at explaining their side of the pickle, okay? Why, oh yeah, this is bad and this is why. They're doing blah, 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 blah. We think they should be doing blah, 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 blah. Understand, Republicans, they don't always explain fully, but they do let you know this is what we doing, and we doing it. There's a lesson to be learned from that side of the aisle to this side of the aisle, okay? Now understand, my thought process is they do enough things that's going to harm how we contend with things and we do not care for, then when the midterms come, some of that can be corrected by correcting the Congress and thusly making the majorities again be Democratic. But in the meanwhile, Democrats need to find good spokespeople to say, hey, this is what they're doing, and this is why it's not good, and this is what we need done instead. As opposed to just saying, oh, they doing that, they wrong. They wrong is not substantial enough, especially when, okay, it seems like on the surface at least, some of what they're doing is good for the nation overall. Changing how some of government works is actually a good thing. Cannot deny that. How it is being done, got problems with it, okay? We will see how it plays out moving forward. And then, of course, there is the situations going on with the wars and wanting to resolve them. Credit to the current government for working toward and means to those ends, not liking how they're trying to settle it out with folks. Understand, the people that live in Palestine, for example, they did not ask for Hamas to take over and do the thing they did to cause this conflict to begin with. And now you are giving them as a solution, potentially, yeah, go ahead and leave Palestine. We will find other places for you to go. And then we're going to fix Palestine up all nice and pretty and make it usable and all type of profitable. And maybe you come back. Maybe to help out with it. But no, it ain't your land no more, basically. I'm not liking that solution for them. They are not liking that solution for them. Yeah, granted, if you look at the pictures that we are allowed to see of what is left of Palestine, it's a mess, okay? It's a show. It is all of those things. But somewhere down the line, that same money that was used for war can also be used for peace, okay? Why can't several nations come together and say, okay, let's get the bulldozer and whatnot, clear out all this guttural and clutter and whatnot, and rebuild Palestine bigger and better than ever and more beautiful. And in the meanwhile, a lot of people of Palestine are not only helping the process, but find ways to live around it till they get it fixed. Why can't we do that instead? Well, in the end, that ain't what the people in power really want. That's why. So then there's that. And then, of course, now with the situation with the Ukraine, you got the president saying, okay, yeah, let's try to get this thing fixed. The Russians definitely don't want war. Ukrainians don't want war. Let's talk to the Russians first. And then the Ukrainians can jump in there. No, 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 no. We know what that looked like. That looked like, okay, look, we done talked to the big fellas. They say, yeah, we're going to stop beating you up. But yeah, part of that sandwich we took, we keeping that, okay? That sandwich we keeping. You had the rest of the sandwich, but that part that we took from you, yeah, we're going to keep that. This is what this looks like. That, okay, part of the Ukraine that they took, we keeping that. You just got to charge that to the gang. But we'll let y'all go ahead and keep the rest, and we'll make sure they leave you alone. That's how this is playing out in my mind. I don't know if that's how it's intended for everybody else, but that's what I see. And if that's how it's supposed to go down, then yeah, you are absolutely right if you are the Ukraine to be like, look, I ain't approve this message, and I don't want nothing to do with this. How y'all trying to set it up? They wasn't supposed to mess with us in the first place. Give us back what you took. Leave our country be. The end. And we should be able to be friends with NATO or whoever the hell else we want to make sure y'all don't pull this crap again. Is it going to go down that way? No, more than likely the powers that be, in other words, the people with the big bucks, will probably dog out the people with the little bucks so that the Ukraine will be allowed to be what's left of the Ukraine, and Russia will get something out the deal. I think that's ultimately how it plays out. I hate that for them, but apparently that is what we got, okay? Lot going on in our government. People, we cannot continue to hold a blind eye to these things and just because it's not a good feel for you to not keep up with it all, you at least got to be diligent in reading your news stories, the real actual news stories, not the AI fakes and whatnot, and what you see on some of TikTok, and keep up with what's going on, because one day you're going to look up and be like, okay, why don't I have a job no more? Why they take my house? Why this, why that? And all this then went on behind the scenes because you were not paying attention to what is going on in the government. All you know is that Elon Musk got something to do with it, and he got the big bucks, and that ain't fair and all that. It's deeper than these things. Then it's not as deep on some other things. You need to ascertain these things for yourself. Do your research. Say it all the time. We'll continue to say it. Do your research, okay? That is that. Okay, now, that's what's going on in the world around me. Then, of course, there's the world I know as the D. And there are some stories that have went on in the last couple weeks that have really disturbed me, particularly when it comes in regards to children and family. This, I'm pretty sure, is a national story now. In fact, you find this and several other versions of the story on TikTok. I'm going to play it for you now, and then we shall discuss, okay? Let's see how we doing this here.
Breaking news in the sibling tragedy that shook Metro Detroit after two kids died of apparent hypothermia in a casino parking garage. Welcome to 7 News Detroit at 6. I'm Carolyn Clifford.
I'm Simon Shayket. This story has devastated our area. Just moments ago, 7 News Detroit reporter Darren Cunningham talking with the mother of those two children.
Darren joining us live right now from Detroit's west side with more from their conversation. And Darren, so many people talking about this. This is simply heartbreaking.
Very heartbreaking, Carolyn, Simon. Moments ago, I did have the opportunity to speak to Tatiana Williams, who lost her 9-year-old and her 2-year-old, also in the vehicle at the time, her 4-year-old and her 8-year-old. Also, Tatiana's mother and her two siblings, a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old, also stay in that vehicle. She tells me that she has been homeless for 3 months and that she is trying to do better for herself, trying to get back on her feet. She told me she's a CNA, a medical assistant, and that she was actually about to start a new job tomorrow. And so I did speak with her, and I asked her, one of the questions I did ask her was to take me back to yesterday.
Yesterday, I woke them up to wake them up from school. My son wasn't moving. And I kept saying, Freddie, please get up. Please. Please, for me, just get up. Don't do this to me. And I tried to give him CPR because I'm a senior and a medical assistant. I've been working there since I was 17. I tried to give him CPR and I was just giving him CPR. I just kept saying, Freddie, don't leave me. Don't leave me, please. I saw the green and brown stuff come out of his mouth. I instantly rushed him to the hospital. I was yelling out the window, stop, stop, stop. We gotta get through traffic. My baby, he's dying. We get to the hospital. I told valet, can you go get some help? He took too long, so I got out the car to get help. They came to the car, instantly grabbed my baby on his head, get a stretch. He's not breathing. Help. Cold blue. Everybody tried. I didn't even know my 2-year-old was dying. I was in it with my 9-year-old. And they brought her in right after they pronounced him dead. And my mama came to me, she said, Yaya. That's what we call her, but her name is Amelia. We just call her Yaya. And they said she wasn't breathing. And they pronounced her dead too. I asked everybody for help. I called out of state. I called cities I didn't know. I called cities people asked me to call. I even asked Detroit. I've been on cam list for the longest. Everybody now wants to help. After I lost 2 kids, I've been asked for help. I feel like it wasn't their time. I did everything I was supposed to do. They had everything. Everything they wanted. Only thing they didn't have was a house. But from electronics to clothes, anything they asked me for, my kids didn't even get whooped. I lost the one who made me a mother. I lost a 2-year-old. It hurt losing 2 kids in one night. You know, I don't wish this on nobody. And if you can get help, please go get help. Because I don't want nobody else to go through what I'm feeling. Just wherever you can get help from, if it's not from the city, the state, no other city or state, just go. Like, you don't have to suffer.
It's very, very, very heartbreaking. The new McFall Brothers Funeral Home is covering the children's burial plans and funeral expenses. Williams, 29, she's 29 years old. She is also receiving help from Detroit Power Detroit, that organization. That's the building that we're actually standing outside of here, where we spoke to her not long ago. And so anyone who is interested in helping her family, will be sure to get that information on our website, wxyz.com, and 7 News Detroit.
Okay, so that's the story as we know it at this time. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with, okay, let me go back here. What happened was this young lady was currently living in her vehicle. And at night, she was keeping that vehicle in a location of the parking garage at one of the local casinos. And apparently what happened was during the course of the night, the vehicle they were living in ran out of gas, and it was very cold that night. And the children who were in the vehicle, 2 of the 5 children that were in the vehicle basically died of hypothermia. In other words, literally froze to death. Now, it's several layers to this story. That's just one of them, her perspective. I'm going to go through here and give you the father's perspective. Maybe I got to track how to put that on there right quick. But here's the thing. This was a young lady who had family in the area, okay? They were aware that she was having some situations with her living arrangements. The mother, in other words, the grandmother of the children, were actually in the van with them that night when this sad situation occurred. Now, first and foremost, prayers for that entire family. They have lost two members of that family, both of them under the age of 10. Nobody should not be here before they even had the opportunity to even think about being an adult. It is hard to watch anybody be unalive, but particularly when you are 9 and 2. That is just heartbreaking beyond. Okay. Now, there's more to this story. Let me see if I can work this out, good people. If I leave the screen, I apologize, but because there's multiple layers to this and I need to figure out how to do this in the future where I can have all the videos kind of play concurrently. Let's see.
He reached out to Curry, who's the father of 3 of her children.
I asked him, I said, can you get your kids for me? I said, I need help. You know I'm homeless. I done kept a room this long. I couldn't keep it no more.
They were homeless. Had Tatiana ever reached out asking?
Okay, that is the second part to this story. I'm going to try to see if I can figure out how to get that on the screen for us as well. Stand by here. I hate to do this
We'll
live,
have more from
but
Williams on later versions of.
that's kind of how I have to set this up this evening. All right, let's see. In the meanwhile, like I said, this is truly, truly a bothersome story on several levels. Okay, I think this is it. All right, here we go.
Out to Curry, who's the father of 3 of her children.
I asked him, I said, can you get your kids for me? I said, I need help. You know I'm homeless. I done kept a room this long. I couldn't keep it no more.
They were homeless. Had Tatiana ever reached out asking to?
No, she did not. All she said was, can I get them? Can I get them just to get them? And can I get them because y'all homeless? That's 2 different things.
She said she had been homeless for 3 months.
Say, that's what I saw, about 3 months, but she ain't never said nothing to me. Nothing. So all them other sob stories, they can cut all that. No, she did not.
Curry, who lives in Novi, says Williams never specified why she wanted to drop their kids off to him.
She just asked, can I get them for a couple of days? But I told her I'm working and all that, and I'm out here. We're not close to each other, so I couldn't. But she knows all my family is right around the corner from her.
Did she reach out to any of your family?
No, she did not. And she knows she could have, like we always used to do.
He says the last time he held his children was a month or 2 ago, and that they typically FaceTime, moments he will miss. And there's a, police investigation into this. What is it you would like to see come of this? Obviously, nothing's going to bring back your 9-year-old and your 2-year-old.
Doesn't even matter to me. Can't get them back, so it's whatever.
Okay, so that is apparently the father's side of the story. This one is very, very grating to me. I'm very torn as to know exactly how to completely feel. On the one hand, there are 2 young people that are no longer with us. Okay, there is a mother who has lost 2 of her 5 children. That in of itself, a tragedy beyond measure. But then in the midst of this, there's clearly a disconnect between the family that is mother and father and such. Remember, this young lady has 5 children, or at least had 5 children. The father in question here is just one of the people she has children with, okay? In an ideal world, if you, as a father, have children who currently have nowhere to go, how could you not find it within yourself, if you are currently staying anywhere yourself, to not have those children be with you? Now, according to his part of the story, he was not made fully aware of their entire situation, but did know currently they were not living with anybody. He was asked to keep the kids for a time and basically refused. Clearly, there's more to that part of the story than we know or may ever know. But in the end, as a child, as a person, you have two parents, a mother and a father. If you are out here in this world struggling, and either one of them are able to fully help you to the degree they need to, it is part of their legal responsibility to do so. Now, one of the things they're trying to determine is if there are going to be any charges pressed against the mom for what happened to those kids. And man, that's a hard place to be in, because the worst punishment I could imagine to give a person like that is what happened to the kids, unfortunately. That they are no longer here to love on and care for. They gone. That's something she's going to have to live with the rest of her life. Period. That's a pain worse than death, in my personal opinion. But the fact that she didn't have them kids by herself, okay? It takes two to tango, such. You know what I'm getting at. If she is charged for anything, I feel like she shouldn't be charged alone. The father is just as negligent in that scenario as she. Now, here's the thing. I do not know, because we have been not given that information, whether or not he has been financially helping those children or have been required by law to do so. I don't know if part of the scenario comes into play where, okay, he was giving them some type of child support, but yet they were home. I don't know any of that. So it's hard to judge that part of what went on based on that. But part of what he is also saying is that there were his family, in the area where they were, that could have helped, but she did not reach out to them. I don't know if that's because the dynamic between her and him was to a point to where they were not truly communicating with each other because of however their relationship ended or what have you. I would find it hard to imagine that if you have laid down with a person that had multiple children with them, that you don't have any type of workable relationship with them at all, and y'all done at least been in love at least at two different points in this scenario. At least that's what it should have been if you have children with that person. It's bad. Now, of course, that's just that side of what we're talking about. The other side is, okay, let's just take the mother at her word. She says she reached out to the city for help, did not receive any. Reached out to other townships near the city for help, did not receive it. Reached out to other states and other cities in other states and did not receive it. It's so many different ways and means of help out here. I need a little bit myself, so I'll be reaching out soon to a couple city agencies in regards to that. So I get it. Not nearly on that scenario, but it's help out here for people that we did not have, not even maybe 10 years ago. And normally, if you seek it out, you can receive it. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen for her. And it's crazy now that in her statement, she talks about how, okay, now everybody wants to help me, but it's too late. My kids are gone. I know part of that is her speaking from her grief. I get that. But in the same token, if that's what you know you needed and you're receiving that and then some, because several entities have reached out to the family since this time, offering not only help with the funeral costs and arrangements, but also then finding them housing and work and other such things. But it's very hard in this day and age of struggle to see that playing out the way it has. Now, some people will look at what I've shown you from that part of the story and say, okay, well, them kids got a daddy, blah, 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 blah. He need to get off his butt and do what he need to do to make sure his kids are straight. But again, this is a young lady, 29 years of age, with now 3 children, with multiple different parents, okay? I don't know if they reached out to the other parent. I don't know if how it played out. The 2 kids that died were his. I don't know that dynamic of it. I'm not privy enough to the whole story to know that much of it. All I do know is that from what we are seeing, the village is not a part of those children's lives the way it needs to be. If you are a person with kids, but also a person with siblings and your parents still alive and whatnot, I do not for the life of me understand why there's not some type of automatic connections being made, particularly when those people are within your circle. I see if you live somewhere entirely different and your siblings and family live in a different state or city, okay, that's one thing. But when you are connected to all the people in your city in that way and your children don't know them to the extent to where they can't go and be somewhere with them when you hit a rough patch or a bad road like you did, because I find it crazy how she's explaining how my kids didn't want for nothing. They got food, they got clothes, they went to school, all of that. And apparently that has been collaborated by others. But yet, when it came to actual living space, they did not have that in a city where they had other members of their family that could have taken them in. And according to part of the story that you didn't see, they reached out to a couple of people and said, yeah, we definitely could have took them in, but for whatever reason. Like I said, we don't know what type of relationship she has with the rest of her family. I mean, if her mother was there with her that night, obviously they two are connected, but in terms of everybody else, I don't know. We don't know the situation that led her to be homeless in the first place. Did it have anything to do with not living with a family member anymore? We don't know that part of the story. There's so many different parts of this I can't really speak to because we don't know the entire story. We just know bits and pieces. All I know is those 2 kids aren't here anymore, and it's sad. It is really sad. But also understand this is just one story that I've become familiar with. Then, of course, there's what happened last week in another part of Michigan. And I do believe I have that story for you also. Let me try to work that one out. Give me a second. Oh, that might be a little harder to do, people. I think I'm gonna have to pull that one from YouTube itself. Let me see if I can get that to play. Hold on. Might be a little easier said than done. Okay. Let's get us a shot here.
Rescued from squalid conditions, their mother now under arrest. Thank you so much for joining us for 7 News Detroit at 11. I'm Whitney Burney. Their mother allegedly abandoned those 3 children involved. If you ever suspect a child is in danger, please speak up.
Okay, people. Where do I begin on this one? This really, really is bothersome to me. Maybe even more so than the other story. Because of the mere thought of it. Imagine, if you will, you are at that time, if you want to go back to when the child said they were first abandoned, you are about 11 years old. And for whatever reason, don't know what that reason or rationale is, your parent has decided, I'm not trying to be bothered with you anymore. To the point to where, okay, you are here in this house, and this is where you're going to be, and I'm not coming back here, and y'all take care of yourselves. 11 years old, okay? Understand, I am the kid of the generation known as latchkey, which basically means that I was a kid who, after school, was given the key to my household and basically told, okay, let yourself in, make yourself something to eat, clean up a little bit, wait for your brother, and when I get home, everything is everything. So for maybe a couple hours here and there during the week, I was in charge of the house, okay? Understand that in that understanding, there were several rules and regulations to be followed by said person, okay? Don't let nobody else in. blah, 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 etc., etc., okay? But in the end, it was for a couple hours, okay? Imagine, if you will, now a child at that age being told, I am not coming back here. This is your house. Do y'all. I mean, who knows what that conversation even went like, to be honest. If there was even a conversation, if not just one day, the mama just said, I'm out. And that's that. Or if the mama said, okay, look, this what's going on. I'm leaving here. You better not tell nobody, no. Or you're going to end up dead. What? Who knows what was said to even get those children to a point to where they live in that house alone for years at a time, supposedly, with no parental supervision, nobody outside of the mother, apparently, knowing that they were there. Now, I can't even conceive of a scenario where any of that could be justified whatsoever. Several people, maybe even more so, like I said in the other story, have failed those children. Understand, my personal opinion, not knowing, but what we know of the story, is that mother is a deplorable human being, a human piece of filth, okay? Whatever happens to her legally, financially, in this world, she completely and totally deserves. Just wrong on so many levels. I could not even fathom what she could possibly say that I would accept as a reasonable excuse for her leaving those kids in that way. None of it. Okay? There are some people that are not meant to be parents, period. Clearly, this person was one of them. Now, of course, we asked the questions that anybody would ask. Okay, so that's the mama. Where was the daddy at? Don't know. We don't have that information. Don't even know if that was one of those situations like that where there's multiple daddies. Don't know any of that. 3-4 years, nobody knew they was in that house by themselves. That's the crazier part of that story. First of all, what were those children told that made them fearful enough to not leave that house and get help? Do those children have some type of learning disability? Were those children physically and mentally abused in this process? We've been told that, she didn't go to the house, that basically it was just food that was dropped off to them and what have you. Do we know that for certain? That she never popped through? That nobody that she knew never came over? I mean, when they show some of the conditions of that house, how do you live like that? Now, I am not the neatest person in the world, but Lord knows I could not. I could never, whether I was 54 now or 10 then, live like them children was living. The way that house looked from what we were allowed to see. Just based on what we were allowed to see, it looked like a complete and total nightmare to live in. When basically no room in the house had proper plumbing situated, and so on and so forth. There was just filth and squalor and feces all throughout the house. The kids basically were unkept and matted and filthy, and I could not even imagine what that is like. I mean, just think about the mental ramifications of that moving forward in the lives of those children. You will never be the same after having experienced something like that. I don't think it's enough therapy in the world to get you to have anything close to what we would consider a normal mindset after having been left that way. A boy and his two sisters. Who knows what else went on in that house with the three? I can't. I mean, just some of the things that's coming to my own mind. It's just insane. So the actual reality of it could. How do you do that? How, as a human being, do you do that and still try to live some sense of a normal life, knowing that you have those three young people there in that way? If you were making sure they had some type of food and you were paying the rent for years at a time till you stopped, was it that you were hoping they wouldn't make it through, that they would eventually be unalive? And I don't know what the thought process could have been. Even in having this discussion with y'all, I really am struggling to understand what the thought process. Some things are beyond the realm of my personal comprehension. This is one of those things. Here's where the story really gets crazy. They, much like in the other story, had people, in other words, their family members that lived in that community. In fact, had a brother-in-law that literally lived down the street from the house. Let that settle in your mind for a minute. Your uncle, okay, lived down the street. I'm not sure if the kids knew that or not. I'm not sure if that was any type of option. According to said person, he did not know the situation to be what it was. He was told, like other family members, that the kids were living with their father. And that's where they were. So because of that, nobody went to look for them or look out for them. I mean, it's your nephews and your niece. Don't nobody want to see you about them? Go visit them. Get in touch with the father. Like, yeah, can we see our peoples? I don't understand that part of it at all. Understand, I grew up in the city of Detroit where my mother's peoples were all around our neighborhood. They were pretty much within a 5 to 10 minute living arrangement from us, many of them, our cousins and uncles and such. So that if that had been us for whatever reason, we had options. I'm assuming there was no type of phone or anything that those kids had access to. But the thing I don't understand is if you are that bad off, whether you are 12 or 28 or 88, and you know things ain't the way they need to be, because at some point, you had to know that things could be better than what they were. Looking at Israel here. What up, Israel? Those children may have been scared to say. Clearly, that was the case, my friend. That had to clear. Like I said, who knows what those children had been told in order to get them and convince them not to leave that house. As crazy as it looked after a time, I can only imagine what could have been said or done. Did she threaten them physically? Did she beat them? Did she show them? Who knows? I can't, my mind don't go to places like that. So I don't really know what to think of what could have been said. I would, and talking to people about it over the last week or so, it's like, okay, if that was me as a kid, was I was the audience, ain't no way on earth My mama getting away with that, okay? At some point, I'm telling somebody something. The neighbor, I'm going to the police, I'm doing something. Because at one point in time in life, you would assume that those kids were living a normal life where they were going to school, they had friends, they were seeing their family members, and then suddenly they wouldn't. And you would think just from the human nature of it all, at some point in your mind, like, look, I want to see my granny, or I want to see my auntie, or I'm tired of this whatever food I'm being sent, or this place smell like yeah. I can't do this. I got to tell somebody something, and whatever happens, happens. You would think that. But again, as Israel said, who knows what those kids were told to keep them in that house for that long under those conditions without saying anything? Did they even know that their uncle lived down the street for that matter? Did they even know where they were? You know what I'm saying? It may have simply been a situation that, for all they knew, they were somewhere beyond the realm of that because there was no television in that house. There was no communication devices. I don't. It's some of this that just I don't even have a word. Okay, Israel saying probably those children were abused. No, probably to it. Definitely, sir. There has to be more behind this. Clearly, there is. From what I gather, there are big pieces to this story and that's exactly what I'm saying. Is that there are huge gaps in this story that we are still yet to determine. Okay, we do know at this point the mother is in custody. Thank God. She should not be walking the streets. That piece of filth. Again, I can't even imagine a story I would hear from her that would make me feel sympathetic to her in that way. She did them kids so very, very wrong, and it's going to affect them for the rest of their lives. Now, fortunately, they are living with other family members at this point, and the community that is Pontiac and surrounding communities have reached out to the family and provided them with clothes and food and toys and a whole bunch of other stuff for the kids in some type of way of trying to make up for lost time, so to speak. The school system's going to work with getting them back situated with all of that, but it's so much help they're going to need down the line. From a mental standpoint, how do you trust anybody after that? Anybody, family included. They may have been covered. I mean, that's part of it we don't know either. Do the family members even know the real story and are not telling us the whole story? According to one of the family members, they asked, like, yeah, the kids are doing better. We working with it. We didn't know. That's what they said. The brother-in-law says he didn't know. You got to take them at they were. I mean, what human being allows that to happen and don't say nothing? It's not too many people out here. Like it's a lot of evil people in this world. We know this. We know this. But you would have to think they are not to that degree. It's not a whole family of them. Everybody related to those kids aren't monsters. You would like to think and hope that. But just to be in that situation, then of course, I got to put some blame on the landlord in this situation. If you are a person renting out a property, you are required by law to, from time to time, inspect the property for potential damage, so on and so forth. Okay? You had this property for years. You did not run yearly inspections as most property people that own those type of properties do, or 6 months or whatever. So for years this went on under your nose. You didn't care because in the end, up until October at least, you were getting your money every month. So there was no need to check. No need to worry about it. Nobody complained about that property, obviously, because in the end, if it was just the kids living there and they didn't know they had that as an option or wasn't able to complain because they were threatened, as Israel said, then there's that. And the only reason we even know this story to this day is because you finally decided, let me go see about my money. And when you weren't able to catch up with the mom and nobody answered the door apparently, that's when you called for a wellness check and the authorities got involved, and that's where we are now. Otherwise, to this day, those kids would still be living like that. That's the craziest thing about it of all. Should the landlord be charged in this? I really don't see what you could charge him with in terms of the abandonment part of it. Obviously, you could charge him for not being on his P's and Q's with the rental of it all. There's some charge in there somewhere you probably could get him, but Israel said, I believe there is a element of mental illness in it. It's clearly because how do you abandon your kids knowing they are living in those conditions? Health code violation, absolutely. Yeah, there's that. But yet you still are paying the rent. You still are dropping food off with them. I mean, I would have to think at some point in that 4-year time, she went back to that house and she knew it looked the way it did and just didn't give no damn. I mean, think about it. What if they did someday try to cook something and the house caught on fire? You know what I'm saying? I will say this. At times like this, that's why I definitely know there is a God, okay? Because God intervened in the lives of those kids in this scenario. Because 3 or 4 years like that, in this day and age of 2025, I don't think most kids would have survived that for that long. Okay? At least not without the good Lord looking over them. I don't see that as even being in the realm of possibility. But in the same token, I also don't see where most kids would have allowed for themselves to be dealt with that way for years at a time. Understand if it did start around 2020, that was during the times of COVID and whatnot. Those were different times. That part of the story I kind of get in the moment because of what was going on at the time. Yeah, I could see where you get away with it at that point. But once the world got back online and everything, I mean, I'm sure you looked out the window at some point and seen stuff was going on. I mean, like I said, if they were younger kids, this would even be an even worse story. But just the fact, 15, 13, and 12, okay, left by your mom. I mean, at least that's the age they are now, by the way. Remember, when the oldest kids said they was left, it was 4 years ago. So at that point, they were what, 11, 9, and 8, something like that. Imagine what your thought process was at 11, 9, and 8. It's a lot I still want to say, but again, I need to know more about what happened. Hopefully, we will get some of that story. But then again, some of that is not our story to tell or know. Just know that that mother is incarcerated, and I don't need her to ever see the light again as long as she lives, okay? Whatever the maximum sentence is for child abandonment and endangerment and abuse, whatever that is, I need her to get that to the fullest extent of the law 1, 2, 3 counts thereof. She does not deserve to be amongst reasonable people in this world. And I like I said, I can't even think of anything she could come with as an excuse to make any type of sense, what she did to those kids at all. As far as the other story, it does not have a happy ending because people lost their lives in the process. And I'm praying for those children who went through that with their mom. I'm praying for that mother. I'm praying for that father. Because in the end, I want him to have a relationship with whatever child he has left in that scenario. I'm praying for the other father who is missing from that scenario. I'm praying for the father of these kids. We haven't heard from him. We don't know his side of the story. For all we know, it could have been him. We don't know. It's a lot about that story that bothers me because I don't know. And we don't know. But see, before we move on to the end of the episode, there is one more story I want to talk about because in this day and age of 2025, sometimes we are on the scene when things happen and we deal with it in a way that concerns me also. In this TikTok, YouTube life that we live now, where for most of us, it's more about going viral than it is being good human beings sometimes. Let me see if I can track that story down for us here and play that one. Hold on. All right. Here's this story, and I believe this happened a few weeks ago. Let's see if we can get that. Okay. Okay, let's go through this one, all right? What happened was this young lady, according to said security guard, was being belligerent, basically causing a disturbance within this Taco Bell restaurant. And at that time, she was asked to leave after a verbal altercation. She decided, no, I'm going to order my food, blase split. She goes to order the food. He then does what he does, as you saw there in the video, basically hit her very hard upon the face. And that in turn leads to her walking away from the kiosk. They have a further discussion. And then she finally leaves the building. Now, multiple people took the time out of their busy day to record the incident as it happened that day in the Taco Bell, okay? I need for us to put ourselves in this thought process. For those of you listening on the radio side and what have you. Here you are in Taco Bell. Let's just say that person is not basic person A, but your sister. And your sister is having an issue with security guard. They fuss, but it's just a discussion. Fine, let me order my food. At that point, he turns around and slaps the taste out your sister, okay? Hits her very, very hard. What you doing? Is you pulling out your phone to record the incident? Or are you going upside old boy head for hitting your sister, right? You ain't letting that ride like that, is you? And it don't matter what color, nationality, gender identifier you are, more than likely you about to try to go upside old boy head, gun or not. You ain't letting that ride. That's your family, right? Okay, so this person ain't your family. They basic person A. But they still a female being hit very hard upon the face by a male. Now, I don't know about your house, but in my house, we was taught you are not to hit women. Okay? That is wrong. Particularly when you hit them that hard and they don't have no weapon and you do. Ain't no excuse for that one, okay? You asked to leave, she didn't leave. If it was in your powers as the security to escort her out in a way where you grab her arm and lead her out or something like that, okay, that's one thing. But to hit her that hard and then do what you did, that was too much. But what disturbed me the most about that video is the fact that while other people are recording what happened, I don't see nobody getting up and say, hey man, what you doing? Don't do that. You know, you hear people in the background, but you don't see nobody protesting to that degree that, yeah, you shouldn't be beating on her like that. What's up with all that? She didn't even try to hit you back. Why are you doing her like that? You don't see none of that going on. And understand that's just one of many videos. You can go on TikTok right now. Just type in fight. All these videos pop up. This one and many, many more of people getting into all type of incidents in public while people record it. And very few people are usually saying anything like, don't do that, stop, let her go. Some videos you'll see that, but more times than not, they there for the show. World star, that type of stuff. We are a society that, when it comes to certain things, are so offended when they happen. But when stuff like this happens, we're not offended enough. We should feel more than some type of way than we do when these things happen. But yet we are so disconnected from our feels when it comes to stuff like that, we seem to let it ride for the sake of it. And it's crazy how there's videos that you go on TikTok, acts of kindness. You can type that in and you'll see acts of kindness. People coming up like, okay, you can't afford that, here's some money. Those type of videos. And those videos, they do get views, okay? They get likes, but they don't get nearly as many likes and views as videos like this one. That is what's wrong with us right now, people. That is what's wrong with our society. Our priorities are in a bad place. It is why people like some of the people we talked about tonight have slipped under the cracks and been ignored by society and allowed to do some of the crazy things that they have done or be in some of the crazy situations they have been in. Yeah, Israel saying if it was him, he flying out the window. Keep in mind, if I'm there, granted, if it's my sister or something, yeah, I guess we both getting shot today because, yeah, I ain't letting that ride. But if it's basic person, hey, I'm at least going to be like, hey, what you doing? Would I think to pull out my phone if it came to that in terms of wanting her to get her proper justice after the fact? Maybe then, but that's not before I done said something to the management or said something to him like, man, don't do that. Man, you've been, okay, at that point I'm pulling out the phone and after I'm calling the authorities, maybe then I'm recording it so they'll know what happened. But just to record it and for the sake of wanting to post it later for TikTok and we think very differently. Let me just say that. As I'm sitting here doing this podcast, and several people watching, but I'm not anybody that's going to be world famous more likely than not, because these are the things I talk about. If I was more into the scandalous talk and things of that nature, probably would get more views and whatnot, but that ain't why I do these discussions. I have these discussions with y'all, so I really want y'all to think about what we got going. And sometimes I want you to just acknowledge the behavior, and sometimes I really want you to think about it so we can change and do better. This is definitely one of them cases. Israel saying, then worry about the handcuffs later. I felt that hit exactly. I still hear that hit in my head, how hard it was. So I can only imagine how hard it really was. Anybody else hit me like that, our mentality is, okay, you got me, but I'm about to come back up here and either you get fired or you get fired on. You feel me? And it's some bad people out here. I think that's the gist of what we getting in this episode. Some bad people out here, and there's some people out here that need our help. And if you see any of these situations like the ones I discussed this evening, or if you know people in these scenarios and know they need help, if you're able to help them, please do so. Don't allow these injustices to go on this way. The government is focused on the wrong stuff right now. These are the people that need our help the most. These people who are mentally challenged, these people who do need help with homes and health care and dealing with children issues and things of that nature. These are the people that need us the most. Anyway, that is this episode of I Am Nighthawk. I'm also doing my mini podcast right now. You can find it on Spotify. It is called Listen to Your Uncle E. Last episode, Call Me Uncle Brokey's on there now. There'll be a new episode. I still don't know about this egg thing. Will be the title of that next episode, discussing what's going on with that whole scenario yet again. Israel saying, my question is, why does a trial go on so long when these crimes are on camera? Another excellent question. Okay, that's something we definitely could get into somewhere down the line, because that kind of don't make any sense to me either. When you know everything you need to know based on the cameras, but yet for months and months some of these trials drag on when all the evidence is right there for you to see. I don't get that either. But anyway, for those of you on the radio side, check this out on WTEA Radio. If you've been looking for Nighthawk Network Radio, we've been having some technical difficulties and whatnot. We should be back online sometime in the next 3-4 days, at which time I will advertise once again and so on and so forth. We'll talk about it when we get there. In the meanwhile, remember, check us out tomorrow for the Guru Sports Session, 9 o'clock with my buddy Hugh Lee. Check that out. And for the rest of you, just be mindful of what's going on in the world. Y'all pray for them people. Pray for everybody involved in all of those stories today, because they are in need of prayer. Okay, y'all. That's all I got. I made it. No coughs. Feeling better. At least I got that. Until next time, your boy E-Buck. We out.
The following program is a Nighthawk Network presentation.